John climbed the steps slowly, trying not to think that this might be the last time ever. Ghost padded silently beside him. Outside, snow swirled through the castle's gates, and the yard was all noise and chaos. But inside the thick stone walls it was still warm and quiet, too quiet for John's liking. He reached the landing and stood for the roof a long moment, afraid. Ghost nuzzled at his hand. His courage looked for that. He straightened and entered the room. Lady Stark was there beside the bed. She had been there, day and night, for close on a fortnight. Not for a moment he had left Bran's side. She had her meals brought to her there, and the chamber pots as well, and a small hard bed to sleep on, though it was said that she had scarcely slept at all. She fed him herself, and the honey and the water and the herb mixture that sustained life. Not once did she leave the room. John had stayed away, but now there was no more time. He stood in the door for a moment, afraid to speak, afraid to come closer. The window was open. Below, a wolf howled. Ghost heard and lifted his head. Lady Stark looked over. For a moment she did not seem to recognize him. Finally she blinked. "What are you doing here?" she asked in a strangely flat and emotionless. "I came to see Bran," John said. "To say goodbye." Her face did not change. Her long auburn hair was dull and tangled. She looked as though she had aged 20 years. "You said it. Now go away." Part of him wanted only to flee, but he knew that if he did, he might never see Bran again. He took a nervous step into the room. "Please," he said. Something cold moved in her eyes. "I told you leave," she said. "We don't want you here." Once that would have sent him running. Once that might have even made him cry. Now it only made him angry. He would be a sworn brother to the Night's Watch soon, and face worse danger than Catelyn Tully Stark. "He's my brother," he said. "Shall I call the guards?" "Call them," John said defiant. "You can't stop me from seeing him." He crossed the room, keeping the bed between them, and looked down on Bran, where he lay. She was holding one of his hands. It looked like a claw. This was not the Bran he remembered. The flesh had all gone from him. His skin stretched tight over bone, like sticks. Under the blanket, his legs bent in a way that made John sick. His eyes were sunken deep into black pits open, but they saw nothing. The fall had shrunken him somehow. He looked half a leaf, as if the first strong wind could carry him away to his grave. Yet under the frail carriage of those shattered ribs, his chest rose and fell with each swallow breath. "Bran," he said, "I'm sorry I didn't come before. I was afraid." He could feel the tears rolling down his cheeks. John no longer cared. "Don't die, Bran, please. We're all waiting for you to wake up. Me and Robb and the girls and everyone." Lady Stark was watching. She had not raised a cry. John took that for acceptance. Outside the window the dire wolf howled again, the wolf that Bran had not had time to name. "I have to go now," John said. "Uncle Benjamin is waiting. I'm going north to the wall. We have to leave today before the snow comes." He remembered how excited Bran had been to prospect the journey. It was more than he could bear. The thought of leaving him behind like this. John brushed away his tears, leaned over and kissed his brother lightly on the lips. "I wanted him to stay here with me," Lady Stark said softly. John watched her wary. She was not looking at him. She was talking to him, but a part of her. It was as if he was not even there. "I prayed for it," she said dully. "He was my special boy. I went to the Sept and prayed 7 times to the 7 faces of God that Ned would change his mind and leave him here with me. Sometimes prayers are answered." John did not know what to say. "It wasn't your fault," he managed after this awkward silence. Her eyes found him. They were full of poison. "I need None of your absolution, bastard. John lowered his eyes. She was cradling one of Bran's hands. He took the other, squeezed it, fingered like the bones of a bird. "Goodbye," he said. He was at the door when she called out to him. "John," she said. He should have kept going, but she never called him by his name before. He turned to her to find, looking in his face, as if she was seeing it for the first time. "Yes," he said. "It should have been you," she told him. She turned back to Bran and began to weep, her whole body shaking it with a sob. John had never heard her cry before. It was a long walk down to the yard. Outside, everything was noise and confusion. Wagons were being loaded, men were shouting, horses were being harnessed and saddled and led from the stables. A light snow had begun to fall, and everyone in a uproar to be off. Robert was in the middle of it, shouting commands with the best of them. He seemed to have grown too late, as if Bran's fall and his mother's collapse had somehow made him stronger. Grey Wind was at his side. "Uncle Benjamin is looking for you," he said. He told John. "He wanted to be gone an hour ago." "I know," John said. Soon he looked around at all the noise and confusion, leaving it harder than I thought. "For me too," Rob said. He had snow in his hair and melted from the heat of his body. "Did you see him?" John nodded, not trusting himself to speak. "He's not going to die," Rob said. "I know it. You Starks are hard to kill," John agreed. His voice was flat and tired. The visit had taken all the strength from him. Rob knew something was wrong. "My mother, she was very kind," John told her. Rob looked relieved. "Good," he said. He smiled. "Next time I see you, you'll be in all black." John forced himself to smile back. It was always my color. How long do you think it will be?" "Soon enough," Rob promised. He pulled John to him and embraced him fiercely. "Farewell, Snow." He hugged him back. "And you, Stark, take care of Bran." "I will." They broke apart and looked at each other awkwardly. "Uncle Benjamin said who send you to the stables if I saw you," Rob said finally. "I have one more farewell to make," John told him. Then I haven't seen you," Rob replied. John left standing there in the snow, surrounded by wagons and wolves and horses. It was a short walk to the armory. He picked up his package and took to the covered bridge across the keep. Arya was in her room, packing a polished ironwood chest that was bigger than she was. Nymeria was helping. Arya would have only to point, and the wolf would bound across the room, snatch up some wisps of silk in her jaws, and fetch it back. But when she smelled ghosts, she would sat down on her hunches and yelped at them. Arya glanced behind her, saw John, and jumped to her feet. She threw her skinny arms around her neck. "I was afraid you were gone," she said, her breath catching in her throat. "They wouldn't let me say goodbye." "What did you do now?" John was amused. Arya disentangled herself from him and made a face. "Nothing. I was all packed and everything." She gestured at a huge chest no more than a third full, and the clothes were all scattered over the room. "Septimora says I have to do it all over. My things were properly folded," she says. "A proper Southron lady doesn't throw her clothes inside her chest like old rags," she says. "Is that what you did, little sister?" "Well, they're all gone. They're all gonna get messed up anyways," she said. "Who cares how they're folded?" "Septim Dane," John told her. I don't think she'd like Naremia helping either." The she-wolf regarded him silently with dark golden eyes. "It's just as well. I have something for you to take with you, and it has to be packed very carefully." Her face lifted up. "A present?" "You could call it that. Close the door." Wary but excited, Arya checked the hall. Nymeria. "Here, guard." She let the wolf out there to warn the intruder and closed the door. By then John had pulled off the rags he had wrapped it in. He held it out for her. Aria's eyes went Aria's eyes went wide. Dark eyes, like his. A sword, she said in a small, hushed breath. The scarab was soft grey leather, supply and sin, drawn throughout the blade slowly. She could hear the deep blue teeth of the steel. This is no toy, he told her. Be careful, don't cut yourself. The edges are sharp enough to shave with. Girls don't shave, Aria said. Maybe they should. Have you ever seen Septa's legs? She giggled at him. It's so skinny. So are you, John told her. I had Mika make this special. The Bravos use swords like this in Pentos and Mira and the other free cities. It won't hack a man's head off, but you can poke him full of holes if you're fast enough. I can be fast, Aria said. You have to work every day. He put the sword in her hands, showed her how to hold it, and stepped back. How does it feel? Do you like the balance? I think so, Aria said. First lesson, John said. Stick them with a pointy end. Aria gave him a whap on the arm with the flat of her blade. The blow stung, but found himself grinning like an idiot. I know which end to use, Aria said, a doubtful look across her face. Septa Mordane will take it away from me. Not if she doesn't know you have it, John said. Who will I practice with? You'll find someone, John promised her. King's Landing in a true city, 1,000 times the size of Winterfell. Until you find a partner, watch how they fight in the yard. Run and ride, make yourself strong, and whatever you do, Arya knew what was coming. They said it together. Don't tell Susanna. John messed her hair. I will miss you, little sister. Suddenly, she looked like she was going to cry. I wish you were coming with us. Different roads sometimes lead to the same castles. Who knows? He was feeling better now. He was not going to let himself be sad. I'd better go and spend my first year on the wall emptying chamber pots if I keep until Uncle Ben waiting any longer. Arya ran for him the last hug. Put down the sword first, John warned her, laughing. She set it aside almost shyly and showered him with kisses. When I returned back to the door, she was holding it again, trying it for balance. I almost forgot, he told her. All the best swords have names. Like ice, she sighed. She looked at the blade in her hand. Does this have a name? Oh, tell me. Can't you guess? John teased. It's your favorite thing. Arya seemed puzzled at first. Then it came to her. She was that quick. Then they said it together. Needle. The memory of her warmed her on a long ride north.